How's it going, everyone? Today, we have with us Danny J Lima, an art director in the entertainment industry. He has worked for companies such as Disney+, HBO Max, Loungefly, AT&T, NBC, and Sony Pictures, among many more. He's played semi-professional soccer for LA United and has owned various streetwear brands such as Verst Football. He plays guitar, piano, bass, and currently attends Higher Vision Church in Santa Clarita. So, Danny, welcome.
Hi. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. Thank you for showing up.
I'm humbled. It's a pleasure.
No, honestly, I think it's great to see you again. I haven't seen you since, gosh, how long has it been?
Last time we played soccer over at Burbank.
Right?
Empire.
Yeah.
Remember that little flick?
That's right. I remember. Yeah.
Yeah. That was the last time. I think it's been a while. It's probably been since before the lockdown for sure.
Definitely before the lockdown.
For sure. So
I remember
January, February. It was still pretty chilly. I busted out my new tracksuit and everything. So I
was like, yeah. Well, first of all, I haven't seen you in a while before then. And I was just like, man, what happened, dude? Where you been?
I've been retired for a while. The kids retired me. So I think, what was it? I don't know. I probably spent close to a year that I hadn't played, and nobody had seen me. I've been MIA for a long time, and all of a sudden just popped out of nowhere. I'm like, I was back.
Danny Lima coming back. This guy.
How are you handling this heat?
You know what? Actually, I dig the heat, but it's killing my tomatoes, man.
Oh man,
tomatoes?
Yeah. So I'm trying to grow tomatoes. That's my thing during this whole lockdown. I just wanted something extra to do while I was in between, everything, and just to kind of, beat the anxiety a little bit. And I started gardening. So my sister gave me a couple seeds and a bucket with a little bit of dirt. Started growing them. And they're getting super huge. So now it's like my third baby.
So you've been successful with the gardening business too.
Gardening, growing, just like God intended, grow things.
I should tell my wife we should get into gardening.
It's
cool.
It's very relaxing.
Yeah.
It's very relaxing. It's not a lot for me. It's just the tomatoes in one bucket. But I enjoy watching it grow from the moment it sprouted to where it's at right now. It's probably about 2 feet tall now, and it's like, wow, it's pretty cool. But yeah, like the heat it's killing my tomatoes. Unfortunately, we can't hit the pool too much or anything like that. It's still locked, but just cranking the AC in the car at home, trying to keep as cool as possible. I love summer. I'm a summer dude for sure. Yeah, so I'm enjoying it, despite the times.
I feel like I would enjoy summer so much more if I was in shape. I would be like, can't wait for summer to take my shirt off and
just be at the beach,
show the abs. But
show the abs.
Right now, it's kind of like, we prefer winter right now.
That's actually my thing. I started running too. Yeah, I was like, you know what? I'm picking up a couple kilos, so some kilos. So I never run. I only run when I train soccer because I'm after the ball. So it gives me a purpose. It gives me a goal. So my wife would tell me, you should run, go out for a run. And I'm like, for what? Like, I'm not chasing anything. Just running. What's the goal?
Is that the way your wife is telling you? Hey,
Yeah, I think so. She loves me, so she pushes me.
Yeah.
One day I'm like, I'll give it a try. I have some shoes and put some shoes and some shorts and shirts.
Well, Andrew's like a hardcore runner.
And
you're really into it, right?
I started enjoying it. I've been running for almost 2 months now. I can finally run like a mile without stopping.
So, and it's so weird because you play soccer, I play soccer, and you're running after the ball, but I feel like it's different.
It's really different.
It's a whole different
mentally, physically, it's just different because when you're playing soccer, you're running after the ball, you're fighting, pulling somebody down or jumping up for the header, and then the end goal, when you score, you get that adrenaline, that high, and you're like, yeah. And, when you're running, you're just kind of steady, you're pacing yourself, which is, definitely valuable too, to learn to pace yourself.
So Danny, you're an art director.
I am.
How did you get into art directing?
I got thrown into the pool, man, honestly.
Yeah.
So it's a super, super long story. The I got into graphic design. Grew up, I wanted to be a Disney illustrator, Disney animator. I was a huge fan of Disney growing up. The Lion King. And Aladdin.
Favorites.
Favorites for sure. The thing that stood out to me was the animation, the colors and the shapes of the characters, or big eyes and the expressions. So I loved mimicking that. I loved drawing and just the coloring, trying to copy that style. And I was super small ever since I can remember, maybe 5, that I would always want to be the best illustrator out there.
You started like doodling
and just drawing random things, and I really enjoyed it. And, after high school, I kind of fell into a rut. I wasn't sure if that's what I wanted to pursue, or I wanted to pursue something else. So my dad gave me, he told me, take a year or 2 off, figure out what you want to do. And I knew it had to do something with art. I knew I wanted to do something that had to do with art because that's my passion, I wanted to be a soccer player, but I was getting a little older, so I wasn't pro yet. And I was like, I gotta find a plan B. And one day I decided to take a summer course at West Valley Occupational out on the west side. And it was a graphic design class. It was like $20, I think. And I didn't know what it was exactly, what graphic design was. I'd heard about it, but I wasn't completely sure. I took it, and, to my surprise, I really enjoyed it.
This was in person?
This was in person, okay. Yeah, an in-person class. And it was just for the summer. We were there, creating collages and colors and layouts and studying Photoshop and things like that. And I was like, Photoshop, interesting. So after that class, I really started to research what type of design there is, what graphic design really is. And I discovered this whole new world of art, where I thought, the only art there was illustration, which was what I knew since I was little, illustration, animation. But, I realized that in actual graphic design, there's that and there's so much more.
Isn't it amazing how there's just so much? That's what I love about design.
Yeah, me too.
You have what do you have? You have logos. You have packaging,
apparel.
Yeah,
skateboards, TV, movie posters. Yeah, you have so much. You have books, magazines, comic books. You have so much under that umbrella.
Like when you start thinking about it, if you just walk outside, you'll see it everywhere.
You're hit everything. Billboards, bus signs, bus benches, magazines. Even if you look at your phone, our cell phones is full of design. It's all design. Just and there's different types of design. So we're talking, user interfaces to, like I said, billboards. And
so you fell in love with it.
I fell in love with it. I really fell in love with it. I kind of put my illustrating aside a little bit. I fell in love with it and I started to pursue it. So I figured I'd take a course, at a community college. Since I wasn't jumping from high school straight to university. I just went to a community college for 2 years. I did my degree there, and while I was doing my degree, I had a couple of my counselors wanted me to pursue illustration because that was my bread and butter. I was top class in that. But they were pushing me to go out to Woodbury University in Burbank, and they had everything ready to go. I was supposed to start, weeks or a couple months after, I graduated from my community college into this school, and I decided not to go because I wanted to head a different direction, but also because, financially, I was 19. Yeah, it's an art school.
It's an art school and it's a private.
Yeah.
Gosh. So it's very expensive.
I look at Art Center, Otis. Yeah. They're so expensive.
Yeah. And I come from a very humble background. So to me, when I looked at the numbers, I got scared and I said, you know what? Let me think about it. So I figured it'd take some more time to think about it. And I figured I'd get into the workforce and try to become a designer while I think about it and maybe pursue it down the road. But that didn't work out. It didn't work out for me that way.
You just weren't you were trying to get clients.
Yeah, I just didn't have any experience. I had my title. but I didn't know what was next. Like, what was next?
Were you looking for clients actively?
Were you clients? I was looking for work. I was looking for anywhere I could in the newspaper, Craigslist, whatever was out there, right?
And during, how old were you during this time?
21, 20, going on 22. Yeah.
So when it comes to like just marketing yourself, there wasn't really like, for example, now we have Fiverr.
Oh, no, none of that.
Craigslist.
No, there was none of that. It was just you and the LA Times or anywhere you could find El Aviso, La Opinión. Really, that you didn't have any of any of these platforms to catapult your career, to jumpstart your career. So you were kind of up in arms, just thinking like, what next?
Even just your portfolio, right? Like those were times where you had to carry it.
Yeah, you had to print it out. I remember going to the print shop and printing sheets out and thinking like, okay, so where do I go? Where do I take it to? How do I even showcase my work? Who do I showcase my work to? How do I get in? No clue. So, what I did is started picking up a couple different jobs in between, trying to figure how to break into the industry, how to become a graphic designer, which is what I wanted to do.
Right.
I always wanted to do. So I started working selling. No, actually, I was a veterinary technician. Yeah.
Nice.
So I had a friend who worked at a veterinary, and he was a vet tech, and they got me in just doing random stuff. Walking the dogs, bathing dogs.
That's kind of a cool job.
Yeah, it was an interesting job. It was a very interesting job because it was literally tending to these dogs, walking, giving them their pills. Pooping scoop, cleaning their kennels, hosing them down, getting scratched, getting bit, the works.
That's the works.
Yeah,
sure.
that's the works.
Being that dirty jobs.
Exactly. So, and I started moving up. I actually started moving up from there. I started, helping with cutting the nails. So it was a little higher, a little more responsibility to cleaning their ears and, which is a little more, more responsibility. And then I started giving them injections and doing dental work for them.
And during this time, were you designing like at home? Were you like kind of playing around?
So yeah, during this time, I was still just playing around, trying to figure out what my next move was going to be as a designer, as an artist. And while I was doing that, I was also doing, I called it my side hustle, but it was my main hustle, my job. I moved all the way up to assisting in surgeries and things like that. But as cool as this sounds, it just wasn't for me. And it wasn't for me because I'm an artist at heart and that's what I want to pursue. So, I left that job, because it was also interfering with my soccer and I was still trying to become a professional soccer player. And I had to work Saturdays, and Saturdays were game days.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of stuff going on in that time where I was really trying to break in as a designer. I was still pursuing a professional soccer career. The designer part was like, which one do I really want to do? And so I was doing I was juggling a lot of stuff at the time.
And what would you say was like your first breakthrough into moving into that design?
So my first breakthrough was when I started selling hair extensions. And it sounds funny, but this company I worked for, and one thing I pride myself in is hard work. I learned that ethos playing soccer, because I could see the payoff when you worked hard, you played hard, you could see the payoff. So, the veterinary technician, as a veterinary technician, I did the same thing. I started at the bottom, moved on up. That was always my mindset, wherever I am, wherever I go, you keep pushing, you move on up, you go as high as you can, you always work hard. So selling hair extensions, it was the same thing. I started, picking up the phones. I was in the call center, picking up calls and, selling hair. It was literally people calling like, I want to buy a couple strands, blonde hair, Russian, Mexican, Indian hair, this color. And be like, yeah, sure. Here we go. Boom. There, your hair's on your way. Oh, I want curly hair. I want this long, 6 inches for a wedding. Boom, boom. Here you go. I do customer service and, started moving up from there. So I was one of the top sellers. I was selling hair like crazy. How? I don't know. God knows. God's grace, selling hair. Who does that?
And what was the name of this company?
It was Hair Locks out in They were in NoHo, North Hollywood. Yeah. So, and I got in there through a friend that also helped me get into, I worked with at the veterinary technician. So it was another hookup. So, and as I moved on up, I had more responsibilities. And I think that's where I kind of had my first breakthrough where, you know, my bosses really, they had a lot of trust in me. And, you know, we're talking one day and they said, oh, you know, you do design? I'm like, yeah. And they asked me, can you do a small logo for a business card? Sure, why not? So took the challenge. Let's do this. This is my first logo that's not for a friend at the church, not for free.
It's not for free.
Yeah, not for my portfolio, which hasn't seen the light of day in who knows how long. And I did it, and they were super happy, and they're like, "Oh, great!" You know, they're passing it around, and we used to go to we started going to trade shows, and you know, they would pass them out at trade shows, and I'm like, "Oh, cool! It's starting to get out. This is really cool because my work is starting to see the light of day. It started to."
How did you feel about that? Like just seeing other, you know, because I think as an artist, a lot of people make things, and it doesn't, you know, nobody ever really sees it. I mean, social media, okay, but this is like your work being seen by, you know, being shown around and being passed. Like, how did that feel? I
didn't know how to feel, honestly. I didn't know if, you know, I was like, whoa, just a feeling inside. I just didn't know, you know, is that where it's gonna end? Because it was my very first. I didn't know, is it gonna continue? What's gonna happen? Because even though like I did that for them, I was still, you know, I was a sales representative. I was a supervisor at that point. I'd moved on up. And but they actually opened up a second store out in Studio City, and they put the whole logo in front of the store. So I would drive by all the time with my wife and tell her, "Look, I did that.
That's so cool."
And it was super ugly. It was so ugly too. When I think about it now, like it was super ugly.
I think we all have that. We look back and we're like, did I really like think that was cool?
Even when you were playing like music, you're like, you used to think you were really good. And then you look at videos when you were playing, you're like, did I really sound like that?
Yeah. No, I taped because I played guitar, and I remember when I first started playing, I was obviously we all started at a point, but I recorded myself on a cassette tape. That's how long ago it was, just to hear myself play. And I did actually. I quit playing one time because I was like, I'm not improving, and I listened to the tape and I was like, never mind, I'll keep going. I can hear this, but I digress. So, at that point, I saw how you know, my actual logos in front of a store, and I was like, whoa, in Studio City, and I could drive by and look at it, and I wasn't the only one that could see it because it was so big, and I was proud of it despite it being hideous. I was proud. I was like, that was me. And you know, something inside me just kind of registered and said like, yo, like, you know, this could go somewhere. Like, you can actually go somewhere. Like, this is just a start. You know, you got to keep going.
And what was the next step after that? Did you say, you know what, I'm going to hustle even more doing graphic design? And did you start talking to clients? Did you start looking for other jobs?
So at that point, what I started to do is I started discovering different design platforms and websites like DeviantArt.
I know DeviantArt.
I remember DeviantArt and things like that, and just kind of started mimicking and trying to learn things that I thought I already knew, and how I can better improve my work. So I kept doing that. I sold hair for a couple more years, you know, and then one day during the 2014 World Cup, actually that year, I got married, and I was selling hair product. It was like straightening irons and scissors and things like that. So I was selling that, right? And so what happened is it ended up not working out. So I was unemployed for that whole summer, and I was newlywed. I was newlywed without a job. My wife was working; she was getting it going. She was doing everything she could, and I was like, man, I got to do something. So I was like, all right. So while I enjoy the World Cup, I'm going to clean up my portfolio. So by this time, I already had like a couple little logos that I'd done here. But the interesting thing about this is by this time, this was 2014. This was 4 years actually when my dad had already passed. So what happened was let me go back a little and
take
it back to before.
Bring it back.
I'll bring it back. So in 2010, my dad passed away. You know, I was really close to my dad because he taught me how to play soccer, how to play guitar. He was an artist himself too. And, you know, we were close. And that was a big shakeup for me because I'd never experienced anything like that. You know, anything like losing a parent. Like, you don't take it lightly. And during that time, you know, you know, I think about it, and a lot of times my brain kind of shuts it out, you know, because I don't like thinking about it. But it's a very important time for me because during that time, I kind of realized, like, you know, I turned to God. That was like one of my first, you know, turn to God. Like, I had already been going to church and everything, and I'd been involved in church, but that's when, you know, you hit a whole nother level with God. You're like, whoa. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, you're like, God, what is this feeling? This is terrible. Like, what do I do from now? How do you get up from this? So during that time, I noticed like a lot of people really came to us, and, you know, they were very giving and loving with us and warm with us. And they started, like, they really shared their love with us in such a way that I was impacted, you know? And so what I did was, once everything kind of settled, the dust settled, I decided to start my own apparel brand. Just out of nowhere, like I was telling you guys, I started making t-shirts. I started making, I remember what was the first shirt I made? I think it was spray painted. But yeah, I started making t-shirts, and I remember I had a friend actually with me, and I didn't even know the first thing about making shirts, put it that way. Let's go back to that point. so
you were just, you know, learning this industry from the beginning.
So I didn't, I had just been through this whole shakeup, you know, with my dad, losing my dad. It was a terrible time. It's just, I don't talk about it a lot. I've actually never even opened it to anybody about this, but like my family and my wife, you know, but people don't really know. And it's not that I don't tell people because, I don't want an epitome. It's just, I don't know. It's, you know, one of those things that you kind of keep for yourself. And
like, you don't, like, sometimes, like, I guess you don't want to, you know, think about or like bring it back or
because it's, I mean, losing a father or parent, it's not that an easy thing.
Yeah,
you know, losing a loved one is never easy. But yeah, so you know, all of that happened, and, you know, after the dust settled, we kind of like, I figured, like, what's next? You know, this is 2010. I was still selling hair extensions, and I decided, you know what? I was impacted by the way that people just showed so much love to us. I was so thankful with God because during that time, I wasn't making a lot of money. My family wasn't making a lot of money. So we had so many donations come in and just, you know, help us through that tough time. And it was through, you know, people's company. It was through, you know, people bringing us food, and, you know, people helping with financial donations, and, you know, with just everything. And I was like, you know, wow, God, like, when this whole thing happened, I didn't know what to do, but I've seen with my eyes how you take care of everything. You know, you take care of all of us. And I just saw how his hand just moved in our lives. You know, all it took was for me to just sit there one night and just tell him, like, you know, with my brothers, like, God, just help us through this, because it's a hard time. And once the dust settled, that's when I, you know, something inside me kind of clicked. It was like, you know, I want to give back to people. Like, I saw how you use all these people to give to us. Well, God, like, give me something to give back to people. You know, give me a way to give back to people. And during that time, I figured, you know what? Maybe I need to raise some funds. I need to raise extra funds. So I started. I was thinking, what do I want to do? Like, what is it, something that I enjoy doing? And of course, I thought design. So I have to do something with graphic design, you know, something that I'm good at, because, you know, that's That's what I want to do. And at the time, I wasn't even thinking about soccer, because my dad and I, we would always play. We always had a date in the time we would play together, and we spend together. So just thinking about it was I wasn't even thinking about it really. So after that, I've always been into fashion, and like style fashion since I was little. I like dressing well, dressing nice in shirts and things like that. So I thought, and this is before the apparel craze, before everybody everybody wants an apparel line now. This is before anybody had it.
Now everyone and their mother has one.
Yeah, like and their grandmother and their dogs and everything.
And the dogs.
Yeah. And so what happened was I decided, you know what? T-shirts. Let me do a t-shirt, t-shirt company or something. And so I did. I started to kind of look for ways to even start or even begin, like where do I even begin? Because I don't know anybody that has a brand to even ask. I don't know anybody. I don't know like starting point. And I thought, okay, first thing first, I got to get shirts. So I asked somebody, I was like, where do you think I can get shirts? And he told me, oh, maybe you can go to downtown LA. So, first thing first, I was like, okay, let's do that. So I would wake up super early in the morning and I would take the metro down to downtown LA to the callejones, pick up some taquitos, some hot dogs, and then buy a 12-pack of shirts. Take them home. I would get home and I would open them up super excited. Like, all right, next thing's next. And I would open my shirts and you'd find little holes and, one sleeve was shorter than the other. Oh, man. But I was super excited. I was super, super excited. I was so happy. And I was like, all right, next step. And I'd be like, okay, get them printed. So I didn't know anything about screen printing. I didn't know like zilch. No studies. YouTube was 10 years ago. It was in its infancy. So you didn't have all these videos to learn from.
Isn't it crazy how like you could literally learn anything now on YouTube?
Man. Youngsters
like there's no excuses.
Yeah, there's no excuse. Like if that were today, I think I would have started a brand in like a day. But back then I had to drive to LA, I had to
take the metro.
Take the ride my bike to LA, take the metro. I would, have to ride around town looking for screen printing signs. And during this time, I was like, all right, cool. So I got shirts. I can, I found a screen printer. What next? And I was like, I don't really have a lot more money left. It's like, how do I do this? And it occurred to me, I was like, you know what? I'm going to make it a business. And I'm going to make it a business. So how am I going to do that? I went online and researched getting a business license, and it only cost $35 at the time. I was like, $35? Okay. So what I decided to do one day is borrow. That's how little money I had. Borrow like $35 or I think it was like $50 because it's $35 and then like $20 for the newspaper by law. I went down to City Hall down here in Van Nuys, down the street, on my bike, chained on my bike. I'm like, I have no clue what I'm doing. Still, I go in there, submit my paperwork, and I came out a business owner. And I'm like, yeah, I'm like super excited. I'm a business owner with zero capital, but I got a license.
And what was the name of this business?
So the name of this business, it was super long. My brother gave me the idea. It was called Dream, right? Because it was a dream. And it was actually an acronym that spelled out dream. And it was a super long name. It didn't even fit in my paperwork. It was divine right established among men, like a dream from God. Like it was divine from God, like to me, God was divine. He's the one that gives the people dreams. He gives us these dreams. So I pursued that, and I was like, oh, that's a cool name. Maybe it'll stick. Go home and I'm like, what next? And at the time I was doing a lot of bike riding too, back and forth everywhere. I had a buddy of mine who would stick with me and just ride everywhere. So we, I was trying to see how can I, aside from screen printing, from spray painting my shirts, what's the proper way of doing this? And, one day we were riding our bikes and I discovered this business. It was called the Print Lab. And at this place, it was out of NoHo too, by the trains. We used to hang out by the train tracks a lot and just shoot pictures with our slide up Motorola's. so we I found this place, and my friend's like, "Yo, look, you trying to learn how to print shirts? There's a spot right there. Looks like they make shirts." I'm like, "Interesting. I think I'm gonna have to hit them up." And but what I did is, instead of asking them like to print my shirts, I actually asked them for a job. I went and I was like, "Hey, I'm looking for a job. Like, I'm looking for work." And I thought, maybe I could get some design work too, And I wasn't really looking for a designer job. I was kind of looking to do the whole screen printing process.
Was your goal with this? Did you want to like do the end-to-end process, like eventually own your print shop and eventually just sell your shirts and make it this big apparel brand, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So,
and how long did that capital kind of last? Like, how long did you do this business for?
So I think it maybe like 2 years. Yeah. And the interesting part is, at this print lab place, that's where I learned the whole process. Yeah, just, one day riding my bike, hit the spot up, got a job, got hired. And not just that, but I actually got the opportunity to sit with some of these apparel brand managers for some like big companies, such as like Young and Reckless, which was huge at the time. They're still pretty big. And I got the opportunity to sit with them and kind of go over their artwork, and Pink Dolphin as well, which is another big brand at the time, and it's still around. So that's where I got my exposure to these big brands and big names and how they do it. And
so you were learning a lot.
I was learning a lot during this time.
Would you ever pitch them your stuff? Like, hey,
no, I didn't because I didn't feel that like it was that strong yet. So, but I did. I learned so much. I learned the whole process right there. And I was like, well, I'm going to take this and apply it to my own business. And I did. I found a screen printing shop. I found, the right blanks. Because even then, finding blanks was, you got to know where to go. Rather than the cajones, there were actual proper companies that would supply these brands to these blanks to companies. And since I had my business license, which I got for $35, I was like, oh wow, like now I can get these blanks. And sure enough, I started producing shirts just like these big companies were producing shirts. I started getting them screen printed just like these companies were getting their apparel screen printed. And that was like my first step into the apparel industry and graphic design, because at that point, since I was starting my own business, I started doing my own own designs, my own t-shirt designs, my own photography. I started doing my own advertising, whether at that time, I think this was already 2011, 2012-ish. Time had passed, and I think we were starting to get platforms. We had MySpace. We had Facebook. Facebook was coming up, and Instagram was also starting to make some noise. So there were these platforms that were starting to pop off and make some noise, and which obviously gave me a clever idea. At the time, you didn't see this a lot, but I started pushing my brand on social media, and I was super hyped. Started, growing from there. Started designing, doing all my social media, photography, and I used to go all over town and shoot with a camera. It was my wife's camera at the time. She was my girlfriend, so she let me borrow her camera and go shooting everywhere. Yeah, we did all kind of photo sesh at the skate parks. I used to give out shirts at the skate parks, and I started making noise. Started making some noise, and it just started growing.
You were just marketing.
Just marketing, yeah.
Just marketing.
Yeah, some guerrilla marketing on the street, because I relied more on making noise on the street at the skate parks than social media, because social media wasn't such a big tool quite yet. So yeah, just the organic way, man. Just hey, I got a brand, check it out.
And how would people buy your shirts? Did you launch a website, or did you?
So in the beginning, they would just like to say, out of the trunk. I didn't have a car, so I had my backpack. It's like I'm out of the backpack. And I would, be like, hey, you want to buy a shirt? Yeah. I'd hit friends up. Hey, let me get a shirt. And I'll go deliver it myself. I'll go riding my bike and my backpack, sledding in the summer. And, deliver the shirt, and just started growing. And next thing you know, I'm selling in Northern Cali, Texas, North Carolina, selling in different states, all the way to the East Coast. And that's when I was really like, whoa, like I'm actually good at this. I'm good because people like my designs. They're hitting me up, telling me like, oh, this is really cool. I like it. I want to buy it. And it just started really growing from there. And that's when I realized, like, I think I got what it takes. I think I got something special going on here.
So that was kind of what ignited you to say, hey, I think I'm ready to now chase on this either bigger brands to start working for, or really just take off my career as an entrepreneur.
As an entrepreneur, as a designer. So
in a way, you were really put in a position where you had to art direct for your own company, for your own brand, for your own shirts. And just hearing your story and how you really grinded, I think this is true of a lot of artists, that they just find any way to make it happen, and they'll use anything at their that's disposable to them or available to them to make it happen. But I really want to ask you about your projects now, and kind of tell us your experience with them, and how what you learned with your own brand, how you were able to how Disney Plus looks at you and is like, oh, we want you. Like, you're a beast. I've seen your designs. They're dope. Like, how did you get to that point?
Yeah. So, everything I did in the beginning definitely had an effect on what was to come in the future for me. Like I said, I earlier when we were talking, I crashed and burned my brand because I still didn't know the entrepreneurial side of it. I just knew the design side of it. And once I crash and burn it, I looked at my portfolio and I was like, wow, like now I actually have content, I have a lot of work that I can show off that I've done, photography, my own web design.
Yeah, you did everything.
Graphics, everything. I marketed my own business. I knew about sales because I sold hair, and I was like, if I can sell hair, I can sell anything. And we get to 2014, which is when I got married. And during that time, like I said, I wasn't employed during that summer. I decided to collect all of my work, and my wife, she pushed me. She's like, you know what, love, just like put your work together. She was grinding and she was like really pushing me. And that's what I needed. I needed somebody to really push me to get me kind of like, help me get my things in order, cause I was kind of all over the place. Like, I want this, I want to do that, I want to do this. But, my wife was that person who just, we got married and she's just like, you know what? She still is very, very organized. So she really helped me get myself organized. And she's like, gather your work and just start shooting your resume out. And, she had a laptop. I didn't even have a laptop. I borrowed my brother's old beat up laptop, and like we had no computer and worked off of that, but she had a nice one. And she's like, here, type up your resume. Typed up my resume. She's like, whatever you need, babe, like, I'm here. And sure enough, I was like, all right, I'm not gonna sell hair. I'm not gonna do customer service. I'm not gonna do sales. I want to be a designer. I'm gonna be a designer. And sure enough, I started shooting my resume everywhere I could. Boom, boom, boom. Like, this is what I know. This is what I do. And I got hit up. I applied on Craigslist. I got hit up by a company and I got in. I was like, as a full-time employee, actually. This is a job, another job.
And what was the name of this company?
And this company was Joel. It was out in Chatsworth. Selling, because I had my prior experience in hair extensions, which was the beauty industry, and I had my experience with my apparel doing graphics. They decided to hire me. So I had the combination of both beauty and design. So they hired me onto this company, which was a beauty company doing design for them. So that was like, I was making like change still. It was just kid money still at the time, right? So, but that was like my first full-time job. And I thought I knew, because I ran my own little company. I thought I was like, oh, I'm a legit designer. But little did I know that there was still a long road for me to get to, like, to even get to what, working with Disney Plus and whatnot. That was like one of the first steps, right? landing a solid job
as a designer,
gaining experience as a designer, doing it night in, night out, every day, so I can hone my craft and just improve, my resume, my work, my whole everything, just everything, and I did that, and there I got to work with companies like, Sally's Beauty and Supercuts. So, I went from doing my own things into getting experience with Young and Reckless, Pink Dolphin. So I started to see that exposure to different companies and, bigger names. Little by little, you start seeing bigger chains, and I'm like,
and you did freelance work for them, like Supercuts and
no, it was part of
that same company.
That same company.
That's cool. Okay.
Yeah. So with them, I spent a couple years with them just learning, and then I got to a point where I was like, you know what, I think it's time to take the next step. I feel like I've given them everything I could. I've learned everything I was supposed to, and on to the next.
And after that, did you dive right into freelancing? Did you have something lined up already?
No.
Or were you just like, I'm going to tackle on this? And
I was still working as a full-time employee, and I was still about to jump as a full-time employee at another company, but this was even bigger. This was like, a big company, which is Primitive Skateboarding. So if you're not familiar with Primitive Skateboarding, they're one of the biggest brands in skateboarding. They're owned by a skateboarder, Paul Rodriguez.
Yeah, we know Paul Rodriguez.
Yeah. So Primitive Skateboarding at the time, they've always made noise, but they weren't as big as they are right now. This was about 3-4 years ago. So I got hired by them. I don't know how, but they liked me. They liked my work.
Did you just apply online? Did you submit your resume? Or
trip out, man. This is where faith comes in. I was watching a video on YouTube one time, and I know it's gonna sound stalkerish, but like I was talking. But I saw a video, and one of the guys was doing like an intro to the new building. Is like he was showcasing the new location in Chatsworth, and I was like, I know that place. I was like, that place looks so familiar. That looks like down the street from where I currently work. And one day I took a lunch, and I was driving down the streets, and I found it. And I was excited because I grew up skateboarding too. And I grew up skateboarding, SoCal kid, and skateboarding on the streets. I found it, and I said, God, like, what's better than that? Doing something I like, skateboarding, graphic design. I was like, I'm going to work there one day, and I said, Lord, just, I'm gonna have faith, and I'm gonna get in one day. And my wife knows, like she knows I was a big fan of theirs. And one day I don't even know how I stumbled upon this website, but there was a job for Primitive Skateboarding there, and I applied. Like a lot of people applied, and I came out on top. I had that apparel experience with Pink Dolphin, Young and Reckless, and running my own brand, and that catapulted me into working with them. And that's when everything popped off. That's like when I started getting my work showcased in like, Thrasher magazine, and like my work started actually expanding, not just here in the States, but outside of the United States. It started, you would see my work out in different magazines out in South America, Australia, Europe,
so cool.
Asia. So yeah, little by little, I started getting exposure working with like Zoomies and Tillies, and like I'm pretty sure if you guys were familiar with any of their DBZ collections and you saw them at Tilly's, like that was the first drop, like was all me. I did all of the marketing and design, so it was everywhere. And I was like, wow, like I think I've made it, man. I think I'm starting my own little shirts, riding my bike to downtown LA to get to this point. It's like, wow, like.
That's huge.
That's huge because you're talking about massive chains like Zoomies and Tillies, Active, and so I was doing a lot of I was doing magazines, and I was doing like their social media rollouts, which brought in millions of viewers and just like engagement, so much engagement. And I was like, man, like this is what I always dreamed. I loved it. I loved it because it was what I always knew I could do. I just didn't know how to do it. But at that point in me, I was like, wow, like I did it. I'm someplace, not knowing what's still yet to come.
Right.
But at that point, you start to see your work, like you're walking down at the mall, and you see kids wearing the shirts that you make or sweatshirt that you make. And you're like, what in the world? Or you're walking by the store and you see, you know, all these banners and signs that you've made, and it just hits you in a whole different level. And you see these skateboards that you've, you know, helped design or created, and you see people riding them, and you're like, wow, like that's all me. You know, like that's all me. That's something else. It's a crazy feeling. And what I really enjoyed, I've realized that what I enjoyed the most was not so much me liking them, but people enjoying what I created, you know? So it's an amazing feeling. It's awesome. You know, it's so cool. And
what years were you doing this for?
we're
Primitive.
talking to like 2017. Yeah, 2017, 2018. Yeah, I was there for a couple of years as well. And
And after Primitive, is that when you started going on your own?
yeah, that's when everything started to really pop off for me. Yeah.
Okay.
So I started going on my own. So, you know, I ended my stint at Primitive. I was super sad. It just didn't work out at the time. We were all going in a different direction. They were going a different direction. And me, without knowing, my career was just going to take a whole different direction too. And at that time, you know, it was, I was a little bummed out because that's like the biggest that I thought I could get. That's the biggest I thought I could get, you know? So I, during that time, I was like, okay, what's next? What would I do as a designer, as a graphic artist, you know, moving on up. I started in production there, and I moved into like a senior graphic designer. And I spent the holidays just kind of looking to see what was around, and I got hit up by this agency, creative agency, and they were like, "Hey, you know, like we really like your work. Like, would you be interested in doing some jobs for us?" And I wasn't too sure about it. I was like, but I decided, you know what, I do need it at the time, and it's like, I'll give it a go, and I did, and it was for like a really small mom and pop store. It was for like 2 weeks. I think it was.
Was the agency Creative Circle?
Yeah, no, it was a creative group.
Oh, Creative Group.
Yeah, the creative group. Yeah. So they sent me out to this small little gig in Reseda, and it was for like a small mom and pops. And I was like, oh, you know, if I do a good job, who knows what happens? Maybe
They just kept sending you more,
and
more.
they loved me. You know, they loved me. So they sent me from this job into like a toy company, which is out in Van Nuys out here too, on Woodley. MG Entertainment, doing stuff for like Poopsie and LOL, you know. So I was doing I was a senior graphic designer there, and I was doing a lot of packaging during it was right before the holidays too, yeah, or during the holidays. So it was a lot of stuff that you were going to be seeing on the shelves at Target, Walmart, you know, and this is like a huge company. I had never seen anything like it. It was massive, the way they just cranked out toys left and right. But yeah, so I did well there too, you know, and then they just loved me, and they started, you know, contracting me for more and more gigs, and little by little, my repertoire, you know, everything just started to really grow. The company started to get bigger. The jobs, the projects started to get more important. And, you know, I worked with, started working on some AT&T projects and things like that, doing advertising for them, video animations and social media, emails and print, and a lot of mail, you know, the ones you get in the mailbox and things like that. And yeah, and then I finished with them, and I started working with, I got hired on by this other studio in Burbank, which is Eclipse. Mm-hmm. And that's where I first got my stint with working with Disney Plus. That was massive for me as a Disney fan growing up. That was massive. That was like, you know, they're launching this new platform. They hadn't even launched yet, but they're launching this new platform, Disney Plus. You're going to be working on some of the key art and some of the you know, the artwork that's going to be showcased to millions of households all over the country. So that's when it hit me. I was like, wow, like this isn't Primitive, because Primitive is a niche company, you know. Mm-hmm. It's like most skate centric, so you don't have a lot of people that know them, just like in the skate community. But Disney was like, whoa. Like
And for Disney Plus, I mean, you're not just working on like one thing, right? Because Disney Plus they had to take care of their marketing, like and banners, outside for people. You have their actual website, but then you have their, like for example on Apple TV or where you find. So it was a lot of places that Disney Plus needed designs for, right?
Yeah. So I started doing some of that, and they realized like, yo, he's really good. So let's have him work on more stuff. So, and that's the one thing that I always pride myself in hard work. Like I said, from the very get-go, I pride myself in working hard and moving on up. And just like I moved on up at the vet, as a vet tech or selling hair, like even this, to me, it was all about, improving myself, coming in, putting my head down, just working super hard. And I started working on a lot of print stuff. I started working on on some billboards. So a lot of stuff that you'd see on the street, I had my hands on the bus, with Bart Simpson, and so a lot of that advertising that you would see out there, like I had my hands on a lot of that too. So a whole new experience, because now we're talking big names.
So you work for Loungefly too, right? Like
I did, yeah.
That's my wife really likes Loungefly, so
yeah, they're pretty cool.
They have cool backpacks. So.
They do.
What did you do for them?
I did just a lot of like web stuff, like social media and email design for them. Nothing massive. It was really fun. Like they would just hit me up like, hey, we need help with this, we need help with that, and I would just dive in and be like, yo, what do you need? Boom, let's do it. And I create different marketing materials for them and things like that. So, and I didn't know how big they were until I was at the mall one time and I walked into this like novelty store and I was like, boom, they're all over the place. But I did actually get to work. I did get some experience working with Disney there too. Because every time you work with these big brands, you actually have to go directly to them too. So you're connected with these brands, even though it's Loungefly, you're still connecting to Disney. You can't make a move unless Disney approves. So I got to work on some Star Wars.
Does Disney own Loungefly, or
no?
They just have rights to.
Yeah, so they license everything.
Okay.
Yeah, everything's licensed.
So they're taking a nice check
for
home.
Sure, for sure.
Disney is a monopoly.
So they're taking it part. They're all taking a chunk, So I was like, all right, Loungefly's taking a good chunk because they're getting big. Disney always takes a chunk, and I was like, I'm gonna take my chunk.
So Daniel, we're living in pretty crazy times right now. We kind of want to ask, how has COVID affected your career, and really what's next, after all of this is done? What plans do you have lined up, or did any of them fall through? I know you had mentioned a few.
Yeah. So I was after all these working for all these companies, I ended up at BLT in Hollywood. It's a huge studio out at the CNN building right in downtown on Hollywood, not on Highland, I believe, next to Amoeba Records, the old Amoeba Records.
Oh man, I heard they closed that down.
They did close it down. It was
so sad.
It was so cool. So I worked right across the street from it, on the 9th floor, all the way on top. I was doing some branding for Disney on Broadway, and I was doing that. I was doing some work for HBO Max. I was doing some pretty dope stuff. I started working on some Broadway shows, some New York Broadway shows too. So, by this time my work is like everywhere. My work is like all over the States. I've had work all over the country, like all over everywhere you can think of, and it just got put on pause, man. I took a week break, and they called me. They're like, yo, like, we're gonna need you to come back. Can you come back? We have more work that we want to get done. And that same week, it just, everything got shut down. Everything got shut down. So I was doing that, and then I got hit up by WB to work for one of their departments, and I was supposed to start with them too, and it just, everything got shut down. So it definitely affected me as a freelance, contractor designer because nobody's hiring now. Like, you know, they have their people in their studios, and then like all
like
these
they're only doing in-house right now.
In-house, yeah, and all these other studios are like letting people go left and right, and everybody's moving to work from home. And you know, as a freelancer, I got hit for sure. You know, for sure. I was still doing gigs here, and like small little short gigs for a radio station, and you know, a couple of little projects here. Nothing really important, but you know, I mean, thank God I've always had income coming. You know, God's so good. Like, you know, we were worried with my wife. We're like, what's gonna happen? You know, and she's in the medical field, so she's always working. She's always
good.
Huh?
Yeah,
she's good. She's good. People get sick all the time. They break their arm.
There's always
good.
something there.
But with in the industry I was working, it's like it got tough, and it still is kind of tough, you know. And yeah, so I felt I was impacted. You know, I was impacted for sure. I spent a couple of weeks, actually not even weeks, a couple of months, just kind of sitting around thinking like, what next? What next? And during that time, I decided like there were a couple of things that actually this COVID thing has been good for. Which one is just getting closer to God, because you know we'd never seen anything like it. So especially as believers, you know, a lot of us start to hold on and think to ourselves, God, is it time? Is it time? Is it time? You know, so you line up with the Lord and just say, you know what, God, you got this. Like, you got this, you know. And sure enough, God's got it, man. God, we've been good. We've had the opportunity to be time at home, you know, spend time at home with the kids. Like I said, I started gardening. I started growing my own tomatoes, and I was actually growing cilantro, but I drowned them in the water. I think I put so much water. I started my own streetwear clothing brand again, which is Versed Football. You can find us on IG.
Yeah, no, please.
Shameless plug.
Yeah, we were going to ask anyways.
You know, so I started doing that again, designing my own tees, because this at the end of the day, that's my passion. Like, that's how I started, and it's still, you know, as an entrepreneur, as a graphic designer, and it's still what I'm doing now. You know, it just in a different way with the contracting. It's, you know, I still have control of the work that I want to take on or not take on, or how much time I want to take off between projects and things like that. And yeah, so I started my own apparel brand too. I've been working on that for a couple of months, and just, you know, trying to hone in and really, you know, make it much better than it was the first time. So, but now you have this designer who has all this experience working at these crazy studios, apparel brands, you know, when back then you had, you know, this dude who knew zero, like didn't even know what was going to happen tomorrow.
It definitely like gives you know, hope and kind of, you know, like it's possible to do this. And not only that, it's possible to not spend like 100-200 grand on an art school.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
Like just start.
Right? You got to start. You have to start. I think a lot of times people think, you know, oh, we need to go to a fancy school to be successful, and you don't necessarily need to do that. A lot of what I've done, I've learned it on YouTube. I've learned it on my own, doing research on different websites, or learning from colleagues and friends who are better than me, you know, and you know, I think that's a really important, that you need to know that, you know, there are certain careers, of course, you need to go, you need your degrees, like a doctor or a lawyer.
I would hope a doctor.
Yeah, I hope so, bro. Like, if you learn how to do this on YouTube, I don't know.
I don't know if I can trust you.
I don't know. I mean, the only doctoring I do is, you know, what's that game with the?
Yeah.
You know,
but what's interesting about it being a doctor is like, yeah, they do 4 years like of medical school,
and then,
but then they have to do a residency where like they're still not legit. They need that.
The time,
like hands-on. And I think you know, being a graphic designer, musician, you mentioned colleagues, I think that's huge. Like, you really learn a lot.
For sure. You have to network and learn from different people. You know, you can't if you think you can do it on your own, you probably can do some of it on your own, but you're always going to need help. You know, and not just from people, but from God yourself, from God himself. You know, you need God to really just open doors. You need you know, him to keep pushing you every day, to have faith, because I talk about the nice parts of your work, but in between all that, there's struggles. There's your daily struggle, like, losing my father, which was a catalyst for me to start this project, or, when I wasn't with, when we parted ways with Primitive, we lost the baby too with my wife. Oh, and it was a really tough time because she was supposed to be delivered on a Tuesday and she passed in the womb like 2 days before. And I don't talk about it a lot with friends either. This is actually the first time I ever talk about it open, because it's ours. It's like something that we went through that made our marriage even stronger, that, catapulted me into another part of the timeline that has pushed me even more, and especially in my faith. That was a time where, I was in between, Primitive and working with, doing my freelance, that I didn't know what was going to happen next. We lost a baby. So, you have all these different times, like in your life, where you need to really know who you are in God and hold on to God and just really like have faith, you have to have a lot of faith. And that really just catapulted us to the next level when it came to faith. So I feel like now I don't really get faith because I've experienced a lot of not just loss, but sad times. And, I'm at a point where I know God has everything under control. So every decision that I make, I'm like, you know what, God, I pray about it. I think about it first. Is it going to be beneficial for me and my family? And then, I let him take control. I said, you know what, God, I'm going to do this. And if it's yours, you're going to open doors. Yeah. And sure enough, it's been like that. The last few months, especially during this whole Corona thing, that's how it's been. It's just God opening doors left and right. And that's awesome. And he never forsakes you. Like, he really doesn't forsake you, man. Like, you just have to really, it's hard to explain, because it's one of those things you have to live, you have to
like go through.
You go through sometimes, but when you're younger, you think about, yeah, I believe in Jesus, I love Jesus, and I believe in God. But when you actually get shaken up in the ways I have, and you live through these tough moments where you have no resort but to hold on to him, that's a whole different experience. Yeah, it's most definitely a whole different experience.
And Danny, like, you're filled with so much wisdom and so much experience, for that young entrepreneur or for that young designer that's out there. What would you tell them that they should focus on? Like, would you tell them, hey, you should hone your craft, build a network? Like, what are some pieces of advice that you would give to them?
Yeah, most definitely. I would tell them just work hard. That's really important. Work hard and have faith, because your craft will, the more you do it, the longer you do it, your craft will get honed, but you have to continually just keep working at it. And even when there's obstacles, people are going to say, you're going to get turned down a lot of times. You're going to get the door shut on you, and you're going to think and doubt, but you have to continue. And that's when, you overcome these obstacles. When you just continue, and you don't take no for an answer. So, I think if you really believe in something, you need to, approach it head first. Like, just dive in and don't be afraid. Yeah, because fear is powerful, man. Fear is powerful. Fear can, people can be molded through fear too, which is not a good thing. So you need to overcome fear. And there isn't really a right way to do things nowadays. There's no right way. You can't say like, oh, well, I'm going to follow Danny's footsteps because it worked for him. Now everybody's
has
different.
Their own,
yeah, everybody has their own stories, and we all have like different paths, and we all have different experiences. And, so I would just recommend work hard, pursue it nonstop until you start seeing goals. And it all goes back to that, recording yourself on tape, as a musician, and, listening to yourself years from now. You can see the difference. And it's the same thing in entrepreneurship and in your art and your craft. Like, if you were to record yourself now, and then 10 years later, because it's been 10 years this year since everything happened for me and everything jump started for me, from kicking my career off to having my getting married, my children, and my career. It's been 10 years, and when I look back, I have tons of pictures that I, on social media, and, that I made for my, archive that I use for my brands and businesses. And I can see the difference. I can look back and be like, whoa, I thought this was good.
Yeah. So it's definitely work hard.
Work hard for sure, and it sounds cliche because everybody says work hard.
But it's so much easier said than done.
It's so much easier. Yeah. Working hard is like this, man. I look at it like this. Working hard is like, let's say, how can I put it proper way for people to understand? Let's say you're tired, but you've done the laundry all day and then you're tired. So you leave it in the basket and you're like, nah. Well, when you do that extra and you actually fold it, that's working extra. And then putting it away is even extra, right? So every little step is working extra. It's working hard. To the point of exhaustion, and you're like, I can't anymore.
You just gotta push it. I always like to say it's so much easier to go on a diet when you're not hungry.
Yeah.
But when it's like all stacked up against you, that's really where it matters.
Mm-hmm.
Where when I think someone said, working out, like I don't start like some crazy dude. I think it's Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's like, I don't start counting till like it's hurting or it's burning, because those are the ones that actually count.
Yeah, and I think the biggest steps in my life and my career have some of them have been when I've been in a rut or I've been in a really difficult time of loss of whatever you call it. That's when I've really catapulted on, because for me it's I don't let that hold me back. Because I know, God is an amazing God who's always going to love me and have me and guide me. And, I go by that and just push. And I say to myself, God, just catch me if you can. I'm coming,
Jesus, take the wheel.
Jesus, take the wheel. Jesus, take the wheel, So that's how I look at it, and it's worked for me.
That's good.
And I really hope that it works for people who
I think so too.
Yeah, I think you brought a lot to the table, and honestly, like your experience and your journey speaks a lot.
It's very inspiring to me.
It's very inspiring to myself too. I was just like, I just want to go out there and just work hard, keep the grind going.
Yeah, you have to, man. It's like what you guys are doing right now. It's the very beginning of it, but let's say a year or two from now, man,
right? You just gotta stick to it, right?
You gotta stick to it. You have to stick to it. Yeah. But that's the key.
Where can people find your work?
Well, for some of my professional work, they could go to www.dannyjlima.com. You can put in a password in there, and you can hit us up if you need that password. It's a little, and then I have my apparel website, which you can check out too, which is www.versed.fc.com, which is versed.fc.com, which is it's like a streetwear, but it's a soccer centric. I grew up playing. I love soccer and I love fashion and design. So this time I was, it's a funny story really quick. I've created all these brands, but I think one of the reasons why they also crash is because I kind of outgrow them, because we change as we grow. So I was like, man, I need to create something that I can't outgrow, and I know I'm going to love for a long time. And it's like, man, I'm never going to grow up soccer. I'm going to be watching the Champions League 20 years from now with my grandkids or something. Yeah. So, I made it soccer centric, and you can check it out there, or you can go to Instagram and check us out at Versed Football, and have some very raw work in progress. You'll see it.
I like how artists always say that it's raw.
It's raw.
It's because I think at the end of the day, we don't like our work. I don't know. Yeah, because we're always trying to make it better.
We're always. I think we're our toughest critics.
Yeah.
We I look at something and people are telling me it's great, and I'm like, no,
this is whack.
Like I could move this line over and it'll be perfect. And people are looking at it and they're like, whoa, and I'm like, nah, I could have fixed this. I could have fixed that, but that's just the life of an artist, and it's always going to be like that. You're going to look at a certain font and you'll be like, and then another font, you're like, yeah, I like that one. But people don't care. They just look at the letters and they're like, oh, that's great.
That looks cool.
Yeah, but there's so much meaning to us. All that struggle is behind all that output for me. And I know every designer has a different story, and every art director has a different story, but my story, if you see my pieces out there, there's a story behind everything that leads up to that point, and why that result is what it is. It's because everything I've learned throughout time, the struggle, the pain, the faith, the love for the art, for my craft, the support from my wife, the love for my kids, like it's part of you. So it's kind of an extension of you, and what inspires you, what motivates you. And people can look at a billboard and say like, oh, that's dope, but there's a whole story behind why it is what it is, and from a kid from downtown LA, born in the 80s in gang infested neighborhood, where I think the majority of the kids weren't expected to come out of there. I would have never thought, I'd be working in huge companies, but that's, God has different plans for us. God has good plans for those who love him. So, it's been great. And right now I'm, thinking even bigger and bigger. So it doesn't end here, it continues for sure.
Yeah. Well, Danny, we want to thank you so much for joining us, and we really appreciate your time. And we're excited. I'm pretty sure we're both really excited to see your work in the future. But yeah, yep.
No, just thank you. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, man. It's been a blast sharing a little bit of my whole life.
Absolutely.
Timeline, BC before children and AC after children. So
I definitely think you added some value. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I hope so, man. I hope so. Thanks. Thank you, guys.